Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Professor Spira, and I'm here with Tony Boliby this beautiful Saturday afternoon. And we're going to field some questions about the Mucusless Diet Healing System, and had a few of them come down the pike, and do have a couple other announcements to share with you all. But first, how you doing, Tony? What's been going on?
Hey, greetings. Man, just happy to be here, man, and to share this really important information, and happy to be practicing it myself, man.
No doubt.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a lifesaver for real.
Yeah. This information is life changing, and it can be taken wherever you want to take it.
Mm.
Uh,
Hmm.
that's the thing that a lot of folks, a lot of people want that cookie cutter descriptions and definitions of the diet, like, well, what foods are you, what can I eat, what can't I eat, how long does it take, all these kind of things, and
Right, right, exactly.
those those aren't really the greatest of questions. The really good questions are, you know, well, I hear you talking about the principles. Well, what are the principles? What are the
Right, right.
something went down the wrong side there. What are the principles of the mucusless diet? What does what's a long-term practice look like? What's a realistic, if you do want to gauge something, then ask, what's a realistic transition look like? Because I can give you
Mm.
descriptions of case studies of people that have transitioned for decades and give you a much better understanding of what it takes in terms of a long-term transition. Uh, I get very few questions like that, so it
Mm.
lets me know that that's not necessarily what people are tuned in on, or that's not where their goals are at or their desires. In this society and culture that we're in right now, it's the quick fix culture. So it's
Yeah,
like, well,
right.
let me do this real fast. Let me, like, I want to be there. It's like, basically, you want to be there already.
Right,
People. It's
right.
like, if you read about self-realization, and as soon as you read about it, you don't want to do the work to make that happen. You want to be and feel entitled to be self-realized just because you know the concept. And people do that with the mucusless diet. Just because you know the concept, some people feel entitled to, like, well, I can do that. I should be able to do that. Those guys are doing it. I can do that. But
Yeah,
do you
it's
but do you
true.
know how hard people have worked? Like, do you know how hard
Right.
people have worked? Because I don't. Because on one hand, there, simplicity and rationality doesn't always necessarily go hand in hand with easy. So I don't tell people to
Mm.
say, like, well, the diet's easy. No, there's the diet. The diet is simple. The diet is very simplistic. So you don't have to get into analyzing calories and nutrition theories and how much protein content and how many grams of fat, and how, like, that's complicated, and who's got time for that, and who even wants to think like that? Not me.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
so the diet is way more simpler than that. But sometimes the challenge comes from its simplicity, especially for those of us that have been trained that things can't be this simple. That, well, wait a minute, where's all the big
Right, right.
words? Where's the fancy, where's the scientific community research? And where's this? And, well, why can't we make this to fit it into that frame? Like the scientific frame, like it would be better if it were put in that frame. uh, the results are coming from the way it's framed now. Results aren't coming from, you don't gain anything by putting it within some frame of something that doesn't even work. But we've just been conditioned to respect that. Medical science frame is dietetic nutritional frames or whatever. And we're not necessarily given the autonomy to even know that we can question that. You
Yeah,
know.
that's very true, man. And unfortunately, scientific or the medical scientific paradigm is not a universal paradigm. A lot of people think it's kind of a universal application, but really the scientific and medical field is really an established product of like a certain culture. Every culture didn't have the same scientific foundation that we've grown up with. It's been kind of, it's come out of the Middle Ages. It's come out of, Europe, and not to take anything from Europe, but just to say that it's not a universal science. Um, every body and every culture has a right to its own understanding. And I think that in a sense, it's almost like the Mucusless Diet Healing System is one of the true, like, observable, like what we talk about is observable fact. Like if you do this fast and then eat some salad, you're going to see some stuff sweep out your body. It's like observable science and how to dig deeper into your physiology,
Well, yeah, they call that
you know.
empirical, yeah, like,
Mm,
empirical science, empirical wisdom, which is, of course, shunned
mm,
by within the context of the medical establishment or the science, so-called scientific community. But the problem with that entire framework, and why I encourage people to learn how to critically think for themselves and
mm.
and and test, objectively test every theory and every concept. And if you can do that, if you put it to the test using the same tools that I used when I evaluated it, that anybody could use, if you put it through that test and you think that it's still a plausible and a useful theory, then use it. But I've rarely
Yeah,
talked to somebody that has done that, that knows the history and has challenged it from a historical uh, perspective. Because there's
yeah,
very few.
yeah.
Because most people just reading stuff. They're already not chemists with the kind of tools at their home to sit there and do these biochemical analysis, and even if they were, most of them aren't. They don't have the kind of pioneering creativity that it would take to create new experimentations that would be in line with this, with the mucusless diet study. Because
Yeah,
most
exactly,
people that are
exactly.
trained like that, that's
Right.
the thing, they're trained like that, so they're coming
Hmm.
from that perspective. We need mucusless
Yeah,
diet
right, right.
practitioners that are coming from a mucusless diet perspective, that can that basically can develop new ways to analyze, new ways to go about
Right,
that
right.
whole process, um, and
Yeah,
develop.
yeah. And what you're touching on, man, is like it's something that goes over a lot of people's head because you're not just saying read like the scientific community's work and then apply it to the mucusless diet. You're really talking about like study the theories, get down to the bottom of some of these thoughts. I think that some people, when they try to play that role of like, well, let me incorporate the science, they'll read like about calorie, proteins, and stuff like that, and they'll just try to apply that. Um, you know what I mean? They'll try to apply
Exactly,
that
they
like
try
very
to
basically
adapt it.
instead of
Yeah.
understanding, like, if you do want to go that route, which I personally don't want to go because I see how difficult it is. But if you do want to go that route, it's going to be like a lifetime of like really getting to the basis of the theories and the studies that have been done and like really, in a sense, like discrediting them. You can't.
and
Uh,
and here and here's the thing, because at a certain level it becomes, uh you know here we go around the mulberry bush, as Brother Air might
mm,
say,
yeah.
because you right now, that within the within, in the scientific journals, all the science journals and all that kind of stuff, for every theory that I want to that I want that I identify with, or that I want to be a part of, maybe not me, but in general, I'm just speaking in general, I can find, an accredited scientist or scientific paper to back up my philosophy. So, because there is no like fact, there is no within the context of a scientific community. Because somebody the other day said something to me about like it was like on a vegan group, and not a raw vegan group. It's kind of a vegan group, and sometimes those uh, I've noticed that there's a great deal of resistance for a lot of folks that are kind of garden variety vegans to want to have anything to do with considering the Mucusless Diet Healing System until they start going through a nasty elimination, and then they're like blowing their nose, kind of like, what was that guy talking about again? But there's a guy who was like, well, that you keep putting all this stuff on here, and that's not even scientific and all this kind of stuff. I was like, well, and coming from a vegan, that to me is 100% totally ignorant, because you can find more scientific studies done to support and nurture the eating of dead animal flesh and why it's good for you and why it's the foundation and the cornerstone of humanity and civilization than you can find vegan or plant-based medical doctors and biochemists and scientists talking about that humans are plant-based eaters. Now they are there, but they're a fraction. It's still a minority. It's still a minority.
Yeah.
So when you say, well, it's so just based on that alone, science has failed us. Within that context, from that standardized, institutionalized science, if you use a term that way, it's failed us. And so that's why I say that we have to go back to the source materials and reevaluate everything. Go back to Atwater's stuff from the early 1900s. Go back and read up on Francois Magenti. Read up on Kashmir Funk. Read up on Mulder. Read up on the people that coined these terms and these concepts, and see for yourself if they make any sense. Because I guarantee you, look at some of these things, you will be. It's like, what were they even thinking? I mean, it's silly. But by the time you had those theories, because again, what do you want to do if you are coming from a position of exceptionalism in terms of your mindset, the Eurocentric exceptionalism? Then what you do, you project as being the one and only top of the mountain. So if you're a meat and dairy eater, and you're the people that have the resources and have the kind of institutional support to do these kind of, and to even develop a so-called scientific community, then you use yourself as a baseline. Like now you're using yourself as the foundation and the template. So the template for nutrition theories is based on pus eating and mucus eating as being the norm. So when people try to come and say, well, now we're gonna, this, how about this? Let's adapt this vegetarian. Like let's try and say you can get all your calories, you can get all your protein with the vegan diet, as if the vegan diet is the exception. Why do I have to try and measure up to some problematic theoretical framework that has nothing to do with me or what I do? It doesn't make any sense. You don't have to think like that. The majority of people in the world don't count their calories they eat. They're not sitting there like, right?
Right.
They're not like in the McDonald's going through the drive-through at McDonald's talking about like now how many calories is that Big Mac there? Could you remind me? And
Yeah.
no, and then McDonald's try to make this big deal, like they put these nutritional facts up, like that's some kind of like wow, thanks McDonald's, you're so responsible for putting this up so that everybody can see all of these facts that mean nothing, that are useless to us. If
Right.
anything, give us
Right.
a pus scale, like how what quantify the pus in the item, like what percentage is pus and what percentage is mucus forming, like put that on there, that
Mm.
would be useful. But
Right, right, yeah.
the way they got
Yeah,
it
man. I
is
mean, that's well said. And I think that like something we talk about a lot is that the restaurant and the issue with going to restaurants. And I think that a lot of times we have a restaurant mentality where we want a menu of healthy foods or best foods, and we just want this like strict menu of like what can I eat and what can't I eat.
right.
And the mucusless diet is so different than that. It's not just like sit down and be served. It's a system where you just get cleaner and cleaner. It's like every time that I try to push myself to another level, it's like I'm starting all over again, because it's like my mind is getting clearer and I can look at the information and try some things and test my body. And every time it's like I'm learning more and more. But if I went off of a menu, I wouldn't have that flexibility to like learn and gradually progress. Um, so I think that's one thing. And also, there's the saying that the map or a map is not the land, and that's a good saying because it's like you can't get a piece of paper that's going to really be the land. It's really going to be the real process. Um, and unfortunately, like a lot of the plant-based diet worlds or paradigms of thought, a lot of them still operate off that same paradigm of pus and mucus, where it's like these are the foods you can eat, these are the foods you can't eat. And it's pretty much like a flat line. Like that for me is like a flat line. Because for me,
Right.
it's not about like what I'm eating right now. It's about how can I systematically clean my body. And that's just not a straight line. You know what I mean? It's so much more than that. And so like with the mucusless diet, it really does come down to these principles. Like we can lay out the diet as simple as possible for people who maybe want that or whatnot, but the real basis of being a mucusless diet practitioner is trying to understand some of these things for yourself, like understanding understanding what Eric said about the air gas engine, or like cleaning the blood and how that creates different levels of consciousness. And everything he said is it's much more a science of experience than just like do this or don't do that. And so I think that's what
Well,
we're
it's
that's what
it's
we're
it's
doing
a,
here,
well,
man. We're
yeah,
really changing the whole paradigm of like health discussions.
right. And the way to even make to easily say what you're trying to say is it's an art
Yeah.
form. The
Oh,
mucus's
yeah.
diet is an art form. Healing is an art form. It's not a science.
Mm.
And that has to be, I think, really dealt with and acknowledged and embraced by folks on this path, because again, I don't. There's not a whole lot of people that have access to university level chemistry sets, and labs and all that kind of stuff, and to
Right,
really
right.
get into that level of
And at
and
this
not
point, we
only
don't
that.
even we don't even need it at this point.
Well,
It's
that's what I'm
like,
saying. It's not necessary. But I'm just saying
right.
for that snarky skeptic that's out there, because I
Yeah.
always hear that. That's all. That's
Hmm.
like that, as if that's some kind of defense or that's some kind of statement. Like, well, it's not scientific. Like, but what is scientific? Because
Mm.
if we are dealing with science, like I'm interested, like let's talk about scientific laws. I haven't seen anybody in dietetics that have been able to come out and have a peer-reviewed study of like, okay, this is a law.
Mm.
Like the calorie theory is this perversion, is based on a perversion of the law of thermodynamics.
Mm.
And so they try to mess around with, but there's nobody that's coming out and saying, well, this is a law. So that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm based on Eric's work. I'm saying that our pursuit needs to be finding the laws of what is and is not physiologically human food. And the way we define what is and is not human food is going to be food that leaves behind no residue that can potentially turn into disease or
Mm.
illness, human illness.
Right.
So that's going to be mucus-free foods, pus and mucus-free foods. Or from that definition of human food, it's going to be human foods. You can get stricter. I'm not saying that's the definition, but in terms of law, if we're going to start to interrogate what are the laws of human eating and how far away are we from those laws, because then once you establish the law and you realize that I'm not doing anything near what the law is, what do I have to do to get over there? Now we're talking about the decades of hard work that you have to do, and people don't like that part. So there's a lot to not like for people
Mm.
in this direction, because it's like, well, now you and we were just talking about there's some people that think that they can skip the transition, or they can do it in a month or two or a
Mm.
year or two. And
Right. Right.
I've just not seen that. I've not seen anybody do that, come close to that.
Mm.
Nowhere near it. And we're just talking, and we ain't talking about going all the way. I'm talking about going a few steps. When I look at
Yeah.
some
Right.
of the folks,
Right.
and so
Definitely.
those are things that, I don't. I don't say I get tired of talking about I never get tired of talking about the transition, but sometimes I do. So I don't always necessarily want to talk
Well.
about that
Yeah.
vision of like the grand vision of like, well, how long,
Right.
when
Right.
it's tied to time. When
Exactly.
somebody's
Exactly.
trying to tie that type of discussion to time of, well, how long does it take to get to such and such, how long does it take before I've arrived? It's like, yeah, but you don't know what arrival is yet. I mean, we don't know,
No,
like,
man, we don't know it at all, and it's really hard to elevate the discussion um, about transition, like really take it out of the other paradigm, man. It's very difficult, and there's a whole world of discussion that we haven't even gotten to yet within the community because it's it's difficult for people to get their head around
yeah,
um, really how different this thing is. Like if somebody's mucusless for 6 months, uh, and then has like a little bit of beans and then is mucusless again or whatever it happens, um, a lot of people who come across the system, they don't really understand how far that is from like a regular vegan diet or even a regular raw food diet. Like that is so far beyond any of those systems. And sometimes I think of that in terms of Eric's discussion that a mucusless diet with any amount of mucus is a mucus lean diet. And so what I think about that is like you could almost look at it that there would be like the vegetarian level, the vegan level, a kind of mucus lean level. If somebody wants to use that discussion, we could almost frame the mucus lean piece as like I mean, it is the transitional diet into true long-term mucusless dieting, but the mucus lean diet can become so refined that it's just extremely clean. And you know, so that kind of like even allowing that paradigm from switching to like regular veganism into this transitional diet that is really extremely refined, and then really from that standpoint, like discussing what it means to be mucusless, um, for a long term, and elevate within the mucusless levels. You know, we kind of, there's a lot of lack of understanding on that kind of thing, you know. And uh, you know, so that's something, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and it's, you know, so we, yeah, because there's so many layers of this. Here's where it is at. When we have about 20 to 50 people that have practiced for 10 to 20 years,
Mm.
we can have those discussions. Like a lot of these discussions people want to have now before they even start the diet. Ask me those
Right,
questions
exactly,
again in
exactly,
10 years. After you've practiced diet for
exactly.
10 years, then let's talk. Let's talk about the giants. Let's talk about skin that can burn people's face off, like they talk about in ancient texts of the illuminated skin. We can talk about iron in the blood. We can talk about
Mm.
um, you know, fasting, and I mean, we can talk about
Right,
all of
right.
that. You
All
know,
the
like
elevated
believe
stuff,
me,
man,
you
definitely.
know, there's things, there's insights that have been gotten by folks that have been on this path that will blow your mind. You know, and but
Yeah,
can you? But are you willing to do the work to get to that? You know, because you
right.
can figure it out yourself, or you can, or when you get to a certain level and you come together and we have the deeper discussions, get into it. You know, but
Exactly,
a lot of
exactly.
those discussions are useless for you unless you are really into this thing, because it's
They they are.
just some
They are.
philosophy or some woo, you know,
Yeah, it is.
whatever.
Just it's a kind of stimulation, versus really being like a transitional information. Like at the certain level, that stuff can become transitional information, uh, and not just intellectual
Yeah,
stimulation,
like something that
you
really
know.
that you need there, because there comes a
Yeah,
time when you need that information, and it's not, yeah, it's just not some kind of theoretical or like, let me wonder what it's like. No, now
right.
you know, you're getting into something, and you're trying to go somewhere, you know, and it's part of the path,
Exactly.
and so
Exactly, man. And like something that I could share with folks that I think is interesting is like living in my community, and um, having people kind of watch me go through this process. Um, People really have, it's been confusing for people, man, because people actually see the benefits that I'm getting. Like if I don't see somebody for 6 to 8 months or a year, when they see me, they're like like size wise and everything, I look the same, but they're like, wow, there's something really different about you, you know, because they can tell like the frequency is changing, my vibration. There's like a certain kind of clarity in me that I didn't used to have. So people, I mean, everybody who I know really has seen a shift for the positive. Um, and then at the same time, it's really interesting because my whole thing is like I'm in the process of cleansing out all forms of extremism. Like if I start a fast, um, like I don't want to have an idea of like I want to go this long, at this certain uh, structure. You know, like for example, I was doing a lemon and honey juice fast recently, and you know I had the opportunity to have some orange juice, and it's just like, okay, I had some orange juice, you know, but if I would have mentally been wrestling with like, no, this is supposed to be lemon and honey, um, that just creates a kind of extremism that I don't want. And it's not even saying that there isn't a place for that kind of strictness, because there's definitely going to be fasts where I don't come across orange juice, and so I just stay on the lemon and honey. But or like wanting to go 5 days and I might go 7 days, or wanting to go 5 days and I might go 3 days. Like I just don't want those regimens, and but at the same, so it confuses people because it's like this is the most highest level information out there, but then we're also so rational. Like we're the only ones saying, yeah, you can use these certain transitional items, but then we're also the only ones talking about some really high level stuff that you're not really hearing regularly in other communities of thought. So it's this odd mix of like understanding the whole spectrum and then trying to become extremely just rational and plain. And for me, that defines a lifestyle. You know, like this thing is really a lifestyle. Every day I wake up, I have an opportunity to clean, and it's going to be like that for years, and 50 years, 60 years, however long, you know. And so I'm just taking my thing like minute by minute, second by second. You know, I'm not, it's a lifestyle that you live. It's not an attainment. It's not like a one, you know, there's not a finish line. You know what I mean? It's just like you're just living this thing, and because you're living it, you're perpetually cleaning. Like it's almost impossible to start obstructing yourself within the system, especially coming from what we came from. You know, so it's an amazing system, man. That is nothing. There's nothing like it that I've ever come across or tried to be involved in. So.
Yeah, man. So what I wanted to get into right now is I'm gonna share my screen here, and let's see. Okay, might look a little funny for a second. Okay, so what's going on is for a long time I've had people say, you know, that you know, I really would love an audiobook of the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And I, you know, years ago I used to try to record bits and pieces, and so I'd maybe record a lesson like lesson 1 or lesson 5 or something, and used to read it on the radio when we had a radio show. And then when YouTube hit, I read out of the book. I think I might have did 1 through 4 lessons 1 through 4. Then at one point I did set out to try to do a professional grade recording, and I got a chance to see how hard it is to do a voice acting job, because there's got to be so much perfection, and every time you make a little mistake, you got to edit it out, you know, and you go back or whatever, like, and it doesn't take much to make it not be perfect. So if you want the quality that I think Eric's work deserves, then I wanted to wait for the right time to be able to try and put together an audiobook kind of thing. And so I've been getting a lot more messages recently about it, and so what I decided to do, well, let's see if we can get some support from the brothers and sisters in the community to see if we can come together and get this audiobook made. And so you can, the link for the GoFundMe, this is the first time I've ever tried anything like this, the whole GoFundMe thing. And I don't know, I figure if a guy can make $40,000 making himself a ham sandwich, it'd be nice to be able to cover the cost of the audiobook for something as important as the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And that's a true story. Somebody he made like a potato salad or a ham sandwich or something, and people gave him money to make that sandwich, and he made like $50,000, $60,000 or something from people just giving him money to make a ham sandwich. So it's silly. It's you know, it's I can't compete with that. I'm not making myself a ham sandwich. So I hope that you can still see see it within your heart to help us
Mm.
out here. But so basically, um, and you can donate anything. I mean, I'll take $1, $5, $10, or whatever. Now, if you start getting to, we have little thank you gifts at different levels. For $10 donation, you get the free download of the audiobook when it's done. You'll be the first person to get it before anybody else gets it. Before it goes out there for sale, you'll be emailed a copy to be able to download.
That's a really good deal right there.
Yeah, I mean that's there it is, right? Just
Hmm.
get it there. That's the thank you. It's like, all right, you believed in us and what we're trying to do, and you supported us. Then boom, here it is. So then the $20 donation, and it only gets better from there. The $20 donation, get the free download of the audiobook, and I'm gonna let you download the entire Mucus-free life ebook catalog. So that's the annotated mucusless diet, rational fasting, definite cure for chronic constipation, thus speak of the stomach, and Spira speaks dialogues and essays on the mucusless diet healing system. Normally, to download for the package to download all of those is over $50 itself. So here, $20 donation. I'm gonna let you download everything plus the audio book. So that's a pretty good deal. And
Hmm.
uh, $35 donation, get all of the above that I just mentioned, plus a free hard copy of the annotated Mucusless Diet that I'm gonna autograph,
Hmm.
and so that's something that I know a lot of people like to autograph books, and I've been autographing more of them recently, and so that's something, and will just mail it out to you.
You said
Uh,
a hard copy?
Well, not hardcover, like, but I
Oh,
mean
okay. Yeah.
instead of an ebook version, like
Right.
just the version, but
Yeah,
uh,
man, that's a great piece right there, man.
yeah. And then for $50 donation, then you get all of the above plus the free hour-long consultation
Hmm.
with me, with Professor Spira, who is at this point the only, at least in English language, the only explicitly uh, mucusless diet health coach that will take you through the mucusless diet and go as deep as you want to go, and really, I'm kind of really good at helping people work through the transition, putting together a plan for themselves, as to say, okay, like, well, this, like, why don't you, instead of eating that, try this, or like, okay, well, that's okay, then try this, just to actually show you how to think transitionally, because my goal is always to get it to where after you work with me for a while, then you can do it yourself. Like, you understand how to think about transition. So no matter what
Hmm.
you're into, you could be into raw foods, you could be into veganism, you could be trying to heal yourself of some kind of illness, uh, you could be just trying to get off of meat and dairy. It doesn't matter. I can help you with all of those. Just depend, because it's as I tailor everything I suggest to people is tailored to their specific situation. There's no cookie cutter thing over here at all, because each person's situation is very different and specific, and yet the principles are the same. The principles of transition are same, but the way that you go about using those tools of transition, using those items, can change and be different depending on your physiology. Do you have a uric acid type or a mucus type? Uric acid, that's covered in the Mucusless Diet book. These the two different physiology types that Eric talks about, and to me, that's one of the most useful pieces of information that I get from somebody. And I know I'm the only person that even asks for that information from people, because I really don't hear people talking about, like, well, I'm a uric acid type or I'm a mucus type, and and even though I've been talking about it for quite a bit, that piece hasn't really caught on yet. And that understanding what physiology type you have really can help you understand what you need to do to transition properly, and the kinds of symptoms that you will probably face as you start to clean yourself up. You know, cleansing yourself as a uric acid type is a very different experience than being a mucus type. And then you can even get deeper, where if you started off as a mucus type and then you use something like a Atkins diet to turn your body into a uric acid type, that's another layer of complication, you know. And those are the kind of, and that's important to understand that and to analyze that. I'm the only one that does that as far as I know. So anyway, so that's the 50. Normally a session is $95 for just an hour-long session. So that would be, you know, worth the price of admission right there. So you know, I really appreciate. Oh, well, I guess you won't hear the audio. If you want to hear, if you go to this page, if you want to hear the audio of the gentleman that I got to do this, he's a award-winning, world-renowned voice artist, Ronnie Moorhead Sr. You know, just a wonderful voice. You know, I checked out a lot of different voice actors. You know, there's people that were cheaper, but you know, I wanted to go with the best I could find that I could afford. You know, the quality level. It just doesn't make any sense for me to just put anything out and just say, oh, well, here's $100 and just go hire anybody. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. I want to have the best. And I think Ronnie, you might recognize his voice when you listen to him, you hear him, because he's all over the radio and TV, voiceovers and all kinds of stuff. So I got a link to his, to a clip of him here. So I've just asking you guys, really use your support. You know, let's do this together, because this is going to help a lot of people to have access. There's a lot of people that have trouble reading. You know, younger people might not really be into reading yet, and so this is really gonna help a lot of people. I think that just, it's like this information needs to be accessible for everybody, and you know, for me, this is kind of like, okay, English language taken care of. Like we have, you know, we got the book available as an e-book, you got the physical book, and you got the audio book, and then it's like, okay, English is taken care of, one down. You know, 150 to go, however many languages there are, you know, that have a substantial number of people that speak them. So that's
yeah,
that
man.
that is that.
I'm really looking forward to the audiobook, because for me, it's like audiobooks give me a different kind of information or way to gain that information. So, you know, reading the text is profound, but I'm really excited now to like be able to do a fast and maybe lay down or whatever is comfortable and just listen to the audiobook, like just have that information streaming into me with Ronnie's, you know, wonderful voice, because I've heard the clip and stuff, and man, it's gonna sound great. And what I really like about his voice is that you can really catch like the words very well, and so I think it's going to really help me as a kind of learning method, like combining the reading with just listening to the text. You know what I mean? Like when people listen to music, it's so easy to memorize the lyrics. You know what I mean? And so listening to the audiobook is just going to help me really take in this information and make it a part of my consciousness. So I'm really excited for that piece.
Yeah, and it just, you know, really reinforces everything, you know, reinforces the information, and you know, just a necessary piece. It's like I said, originally, even when I did it, it was kind of for myself. When I made it, when I started recording it myself, I would just sort of read through, and I wanted to be able to listen to it, because I learned I mean, we all learn kind of with a combination, but I really learn best by ear because I'm a musician, and I, you know, I kind of record things orally, you know, that I hear fairly well, and I can kind of replay them in my head. And so uh, so that was for me. I was like, okay, it'd be real nice to be able to just listen, just sit and listen to this. You know, be driving in the car, listening to this, just going. And so I started out, and then, like I said, I saw how challenging that can be to do that. And so yeah, so I will definitely appreciate your support with that one. And so yeah, so be interesting to see how you know, how the community responds, you know, if we get that support. So next, it was a question about clearing out the gut, and of course, clearing out the gut is important. It's kind of a fundamental part of the mucusless diet, and of course, the best thing to do is get into the book. You go check out the Mucusless Diet book, and that's gonna really give you the whole truth and nothing but the truth in terms of what you need to be doing to really clear out the gut. But overall, I mean, you basically have three different elements that, when you put them all together, that's gonna really help you start to clean out your GI tract and your system. You know, you have transition to the mucusless diet, the transition diet, and so you start to eat foods that don't leave behind a lot of slime and a lot of waste, and that are fairly cleansing, that have a cleansing effect on the GI tract. Those are going to be your mucus-free foods generally, and then so that's the foods. That's on one side. Then the other side, you have your colon irrigation or your enemas, which we got a question about enemas that we'll cover here in a minute. And so there's that, and then and you can also have, I don't know if I want to make a whole separate section for the herbs. The herbs are like kind of the GI broom kind of herbs and stuff. Eric has his formula in the mucusless diet. They called it Inner Clean. There's other things out there these days that also are kind of in the same realm. You don't want something that's like a laxative, but something that's a mover. So that's an option. I don't recommend doing that by itself, like trying to do that instead of enemas, because they're very different. If you use that, I would say there's a way you can use them together if that's an angle you want to take, but in most cases, and Eric he emphasizes the enemas over the herbal side, you know, but those are deeper conversations of how to sort of line that stuff up properly so you can actually get the most out of those tools. Then the final tool is fasting, you know, or taking in less food, you know, eating less, drinking less, or being on nothing but liquids, fruit juice, or eating nothing but fruit can be considered a fast. You know, our definition of fasting is more relative. It's relative to each individual physiology and where somebody is. The cleaner you are, the more aggressive you would have to be in order to be like, okay, well, you're fasting. What I might have considered fasting for my body 7 years ago is no longer fasting anymore for me. But somebody else just eating nothing but mucusless diet could, you know, the body could respond in a way that's kind of like a fast. So and just that, even understanding that concept of, you can actually feel it. Like, you can feel when your body has shifted into what you might want to define as a fasting level. You know, there's a shift, and you can kind of feel it. And you know when you shift back. You know, for me, I could be on fruit juices, or start eating subacid fruits, and I still feel that fasting vibe. But if I drink a green drink, fast is over. My body shifts right on out of any kind of fasting vibe if I drink green juices. Uh, and definitely if I eat some vegetables, that's it. That's any kind of fasting cleansing thing is kind of done. So overall, that's one of the ways it got. Another thing, I guess I will combine. I can kind of combine a couple of the things that were on the list to talk about into this one thing. Is the next one is the natural mover, and I'm gonna make a blog post about this soon, but I find myself telling people about this over and over again recently, especially in some of my coaching sessions with people. A lot of people are having digestive issues where they have just overall weaknesses in their digestive system for various reasons. And one of the first things that I go for to tell people to get into is get into Eric's what I've been calling the natural mover. Eric calls it a natural laxative, but then in other parts, Eric talks about how unnatural laxatives are dangerous and not good. But the natural laxative is more of a mover as opposed of a sort of a purgatory kind of thing, like something that purges and is aggressive like that. It doesn't do that. So the natural mover that I'm talking about is dried fruit followed by juicy fruit. So you eat anywhere from, and the best is going to be prunes, or at least the most aggressive is going to be prunes, followed by something like apples or blackberries, or figs, followed by something like apples or blackberries. And so you want to eat, I would say 5 to 10 prunes, and then immediately have 1, 2, or 3 apples following it. Or if you have 5 to 10 prunes and follow it up with 10 or 15 blackberries or something like that. Those are kind of my top 2 choices for this particular method that I've saw really worked. Citrus, I'm not a fan of. Don't I don't recommend acid fruits for this. Citrus fruits, I recommend subacid, and particularly ones that have a little bit of fiber to them. So I wouldn't even go. Personally, I wouldn't really go in the melon direction, because I do agree with a lot of folks that if you're going to eat a melon, eat that by itself. Don't be mixing a lot of melon in with all kinds of stuff. I know sometimes people make a fruit salad or something, and I'm just not a big fruit salad fan. I like to have one type of fruit in a meal at a time. But the best that I've seen is the apples and blackberries, or some kind of berry like that. I've done grapes. Yeah, grapes. Grapes work too. So now, if you have a case where you haven't had a bowel movement in a couple of days, and it's like you're kind of doing the diet, all this kind of stuff, get more aggressive with that. I mean, if if you have to eat 30, eat a whole bag, eat 30 prunes and 5 or 6 apples, do it. If you need to eat that 3 times a day, do it until you start having some bowel movements, because eventually you're gonna have it. Eventually you're gonna have some bowel movements. There's a friend of ours that was having some issues, and so I was like, man, just going ahead and eat. If you got to eat three times a day, if you have to have 20 prunes followed by 3 or 4 apples, do it, because and this to see if, and then if that still doesn't work, then then we have to get into lemon juice fasting, because there's a gluey blockage. There's a blockage that's just probably like solid, almost like solid rock. I mean, I talk about this from experience. I've had some of this stuff, so it, like, depending on what type of mucus lean thing I've eaten that might be mixed with some old toxic waste, every once in a while you can create, it's almost like a hard plug, like it's like a rock in there, and you can be doing enemas and you can be doing stuff on top, and it still will feel like it's not wanting to move. And so you just have to work on it. And so for me, the first line of defense is the natural mover. And then when the natural mover doesn't work, that's when I kick it up a notch and get into, lemon juice fast, lemon enemas with 10, 20 lemons in it, just get more aggressive in terms of the lemon, because you're going to have to break down that hard rock kind of slime stuff. And it's rare. I mean, it's rare to have this be as bad as I've seen. So those are some methods with that, and you end up, you clean up the gut. But that's what the diet does. I mean, the diet, it's not like I said, any one thing. It's the system. So you got the diet, you got colon irrigation, you got fasting, you got the herbs you can mess with, you got exercise for elimination, but in terms of the gut, that's really what we're working with. And so that's that. You got anything to add to that, Tony?
No, I don't, man. I thought that was a really good discussion on the natural mover, and that was right on, man. I don't have anything to add.
All right. And let's see. So yeah. I'll add. There's a question I got from Morris, and it kind of goes along with what we're talking about here. He asked, is there a more effective methodology to doing lemon enemas? For example, are retention enemas superior to just more frequent but brief enemas? From your experience, have you found that there are any physical exercises that can be practiced during the enema session to enhance cleansing? Also, do you find that it became easier to increase how much enema solution you could take up as you practice it more, or was it easy from the get-go? So, and thanks. Well, thank you for the question, Morris. So right off the rip, I would say you sound like a good candidate for somebody that will enjoy reading Spira Speaks dialogues and essays on the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And I have whole sections where I actually address pretty much every one of those questions with personal experience and really get into some pretty in-depth discussion of lemon juice enemas, as well as a step-by-step methodology of how you prepare it and what you do and how you lay down. And some of you were asking about the exercises and stuff. There's I talk a little bit about stuff that other people have done and what I've done in terms of kind of inverting your body so that the gravity starts to pull on the on the water and intestines, and brother air used to stand on his head and stuff. I can't do that, so I would kind of prop my body up, put my feet on a couch or something that was nearby, and pop my body up and stuff. But so the thing, my thing with holding it is, personally, my experience had been that I would rather see somebody do a more potent enema with more lemon juice and have to hold it for a smaller amount of time than to do a weak enema and then hold it for a longer period of time. Now, that's just my own personal experience and thing. If you don't do them real often and you're just doing like, okay, I'm gonna just do one here and there, then I mean, I don't know. My methodology is more for doing them regularly. Some people are against that. That's whatever. That's fine. Just So all these things are just, they're just tools. Do with them what you will. Uh, in terms of, I've just seen, to me, the consistency, especially in the beginning, in the long run, is better than than trying to do just a couple here and there, even if you made them more aggressive. But in terms of how long to hold it, I'd rather see somebody just had to put it in. Sometimes you put it in, you just let it out immediately. A lot of it depends on what you ate, or what's still in you, what old sludge and slime is up in there, what little parasites and stuff are hanging out that need to leave. There's a lot of factors that can sort of have you evacuating quicker. Now, the cleaner you get, and where you don't have as much obstruction up in there, then you will get to the point where it will, you'll be able to get the whole bag in with no problem. You'll be able to hold it. You can shift. I always lay on one side as I put it in, and then I shift to my back, and then and then if I keep holding it for several more minutes, and I ultimately will turn to my other side. I talk more about that in detail in Spira Speak, so I would say kind of just read through that. There's a lemon enema section in volume 1. Give you better specifics on that, but so that's kind of my thing. I mean, there's little things that I cover in there that you can, like, you're kind of massaging your intestines before you start, and uh, candles and incense, romance yourself a little bit, uh,
Yeah, right.
so
Like a pillow and blanket, like make it
yeah,
comfortable,
yeah, the
whatever. Yeah.
pillow and blanket, and and so. And then I wondered, and then there's like the travel instructions, because I used to, when I was traveling as a musician, I bring along a little like a hot plate that you can plug in, one of those little hot plate
Mm-hmm.
things, and I have like a little thing to heat the water in, and my juicer. If unless I have to travel light, then I'll just do it by hand. Have a little hand by hand juicer kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's always a way. There's always a way to do this thing, and sometimes you just got to go into a Starbucks bathroom and do your enema.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, man. So my thoughts on that is enemas is something that you really want to experiment a little bit with. Um, I don't mean like try all kind of crazy solutions. I just mean like do them and get used to the feeling, and you'll start realizing, like with me when I do my enemas, I can feel like if the water's moving up my colon very well. And sometimes I can just lay on my back and it's fine. Other times I'll know, like, okay, let me raise my body or let me shift to the right. Uh, so I can kind of feel that happening. And I can feel, when I'm hitting a pocket of waste. And then sometimes I decide, like, okay, well, let me release it now and then do another one and hold it after. So it all depends, like, what you want to do. Um, in general, I would say that in my experience, retaining the enema does release like a certain kind of or a certain amount of waste that just the immediate release doesn't always do. The retaining does seem to kind of uh, moisten and I don't know, loosen the waste and give it more time to soak, especially if you're doing like the massaging or other types of things like that to really help start breaking up the waste. And so yeah, in general, I think retaining it is helpful, um, but it's not a necessity. It's all about getting acquainted with the enemas and really knowing what you're doing, Um, a lot of times I'll do an enema release and then do a retaining enema. Um, And then there's other times where I'll just do like a half bag enema like 3 times a day and just kind of work through some waste. And then at the end of the day, do a retaining enema. And that's like days where I'm being a bit more aggressive. Um, so I'm not always doing enemas that often, you know, but so it all depends. And they're not this crazy thing that you have to be careful of and you have to be all scientific. It's just like brushing your teeth, like Brother Aaron Spira say. It's just like kind of like a brushing your teeth. It's just a form of hygiene, and um, so yeah, you just get used to it really, and that question can be answered just by experimenting. Like just because you're even asking the question, which is a good question, I would just suggest do both of them. One day do immediate releasing, and then the next day do some retaining enemas and see what the difference is.
Well, and I'm not saying immediate, like I'm not saying to immediate release just to immediately release. I'm saying that
Hmm.
you the if it, like you hold it as long as you can. If you can hold it an hour, just hold it an
Yeah,
hour.
right,
But what I'm
right.
saying is for most people, especially if you're starting off, you hear it's one of those things where,
Yeah,
like
when
with
you're starting.
everything else, when people are, in the book, I think even Eric says, well, hold it 10 to 15 minutes or something, and then you're looking at that, and then when you can only hold it for 30 seconds, you're like, well, what's wrong with me?
Right,
Why can't,
right.
like, you can't, you're trying to process this. So what I do is I'm just giving you that lowest common denominator. Always try to hold it as long as you can. So don't go into it just knowing that you're going to let it out real quick. But when you are only able to hold it for 30 seconds or 10, a minute or something, don't worry about it. Just cool.
Hmm.
Because my point was that consistency over time is going to be more important to me. Doing them regularly for a period of time over time is more important than doing one perfect enema like once a month or something.
Right. Oh yeah,
Where
definitely.
you hold it for like who that
No, this
like
ain't
you could
a
hold
this ain't a
you know
once a month type deal. You gotta, especially when you're
yeah.
just starting, you got to really get down. And
Yeah, because a
with
lot, and,
me,
and and I would say, a
yeah,
lot of my message that I put out there, because it's gonna be what is, I say acceptable, but I mean
right,
it's gonna be what it should be acceptable to most people, no matter where you're coming from. Uh, is that in the beginning, then this is like something you need to be doing. Like if you really want to get the full benefit of the healing system, there are instances where, in circumstances where, you would want to back off of them, or not do them
yeah,
for a while. In those instances, when I'm working with people, it's not like a one size fit all, because that's what a lot of people think it is.
right,
Because we do kind of talk about it a lot, and it's something that a lot of people get excited about or want to hear about, or they do it and they have these miraculous kind of cleansing things happen to them, and so they get real excited. But then it becomes a contentious issue, because on the other side there's a lot of people that say, well, that's unnatural, or you get addicted to them, or it doesn't work, or all that kind of stuff, or they'll start equating it to uh, something totally unrelated. A coffee enema doesn't have nothing to do with lemon juice enemas, but so I'm aware the of the controversy and the divisiveness and all that. So all I say, to make it, to bring it down, and to let's get out of the weeds of this, and make things a little bit more palatable for folks, and meet you where you're at, is just it's just a tool. It's just a healing tool. And if you're serious about trying to get yourself together, especially early on, you're just getting into the diet, or you're just trying to heal something, then this is going to be something that you want to do. And so you kind of gather up your courage or whatever, and get and get baptized, as we might say. But in terms of like the long term, I mean, I can tell you what I've done and what Brother Air's done and what other people have done, but instead of doing that, I'm gonna just say, if you get into this thing, just do it. You can decide about that later. Of what of after you've done it, you have more of a perspective of what it is, and is it necessary? Is it not necessary? You know, so we can have those discussions later. Right now, if you're trying to get yourself cleaned up a little bit, you're trying to get yourself healed and cleaned out, you know, go on ahead and do some, you know, and
Yeah, yeah. And I would just add, you know, when I first started uh, on the mucusless diet, I couldn't hold them long at all. Like I'd be like halfway through the bag, and it would just be like I needed to release. Um, and so I did, you know. And so I agree with the statement. Just hold it as long as you can in the beginning, and you know, it quickly changes. You quickly start working through some old waste, and and you'll be really happy you did. So, you know.
yeah, yeah, most definitely. And so let me see if there's any other questions. Was that the la la la? But yeah, that's okay. Doesn't look like there's any more questions. And the last thing that came up or that I saw somebody talking about and thought I would throw up there was relieving congestion. And so if we're talking about
Mm.
actually, okay, this was a question I got in that's right in the inbox from someone, and yeah, basically, I mean, everything we've talked about up to this point is all going to help the relieving congestion. Uh, if we're talking about congestion in the head, then it's still you gotta clean up the gut. You got to clean up the GI tract. You got to start the transition. Uh, if the congestion is pretty bad, then that now you get into some fasting, and if it's real bad, then your body might push you into some cold and flu-like symptoms. You get a little fever or something, and which we look at as a good thing. It's okay, well, good, my
Hmm.
body is in cleansing mode, and by all means, let that stuff drain. You know, let that stuff. Don't try to take some pill to suppress the elimination, and you know, just let it drain. I mean, I went through periods when I got into the diet where you know, a box of tissue for me was like a badge of honor. I used to walk around with a box of tissue at school in class, and it was like a faucet coming out of my nose, and I didn't care about how people thought. You know, like that was the one thing about me was I just sort of I left all that ego stuff on a whole other like somewhere else because I just didn't care what people thought about me. I wasn't trying to make no friends, as you would be. I could care less about any of that mores and stuff. And so, but that gets into a different thing where we talk about attitude, you know, in the social. Like, what attitude do you need to have to survive out here and practice this diet piece, you know? Um, so but because the thing, and I say that because sometimes people want to try to, like, okay, well, I'm on a mucus diet, and then they think that, okay, well, I'm never going to get sick, or I'm never going to go through something. It's like, if you haven't gone through something yet, like if you started cleansing yourself and you haven't been through an elimination yet, then that's not a good, you know, to me, that's not a good thing. You know, we got so much waste and filth that's ready to be eliminated. That if you start to eat healthier and you start to get into these higher levels and you don't start having some kind of eliminations pop up, that means that your illnesses are buried so deep that your body had done such a good job adapting to pus and mucus eating that now you have to work that much harder on the other side to try and get yourself together, trying to clean yourself up a little bit. And that is something a lot of people don't understand, that because it's counterintuitive the way most people think. And they see somebody that's sick all the time, that's blowing their nose all the time, that's all, going through it, and eating a bad diet. They look at that person like, oh, well, that person's not healthy. But somebody else could be eating the same diet, and they are a professional athlete or something, and it's like, oh, well, that guy's healthy. Like, no, that person has trained their body to be able to sort of suppress the elimination. And when the body is trained that well to suppress elimination, you don't even go through sickness. You go through chronic illness. Like, you go from like, yeah, I'm having fun and life is great, and then chronic illness. You're done. That's it. Bye. Whereas if you are in more of if you have a bit of a cleaner physiology, but you're not eating optimally, man, you might have all kinds of suffering, and lactose intolerance, and I'm allergic to this, or I can't eat that, or you have all these issues that your body is trying to prevent you from eating like that. In this society, you look around and you think to yourself like, man, I'm really sick. I can't. I mean, I had that attitude once when I was what my doctor told me once when I was growing up, when I was 16 or 17 before I got into the diet. My doctor said, well, because I was having all these gas problems, and I mean real painful gas kind of stuff. And the doctor was like, well, you might have to not eat as much fast food, and you might have to start restricting, like the White Castle. And I got mad. I got mad at the doctor for even like telling me. I got mad at the doctor, and I got mad at myself, like I was defective. Like, why is it that why at such a young age already I have to stop eating White Castle? Already I'm not going to be able to eat my cheese conies? What's wrong with me? I should be able to eat this stuff and have no problems, because the ethos is that only as you get older, when these things start to really pop up and force you to deal with them, with all your fun ulcers and chronic heartburn and all that kind of stuff. That's like just a sign of getting older. But you're not supposed to have that as a young person, have that kind of reaction to wrong foods. At least that was the mentality. And and people have that. They have that mentality of like, well, I haven't been sick in 20, in the past 5 years, I haven't been sick. And then I look at what they're eating, and then I kind of like, wow, I'll feel sorry for them for a minute, because their body is going directly into chronic illness. It's not even going to give them a chance to. A cold and flu-like symptom isn't nothing. That's nothing. People get so concerned. It's like, man, that's a walk in the park compared to any number of chronic illnesses. So I will take cold and flu all day, every day, versus some of these things, this chronic stuff, or stuff that doesn't even get to be chronic. People in their 40s having strokes and dying immediately. They don't even get a chance to have I mean, that's showing you this timeline, how it's changing. And some of these people, again, don't be deceived by, oh, I'm having fun, I'm living life, and everything is fun, and 40 stroke, dead. So where there was no, because the nature's warning sign had been ignored for so long, that the body basically went into a mode where it's going to get you, it's just going to let you live as long as possible, and then it's done. And to me, that's not a rational approach to life, to when we know that there are better options in terms of what to eat. To me, it makes sense to choose that direction, because our body is trying, it's trying. But the filthier you are, the easier it's going to be for you to stomach the worst foods. And that's the exact opposite from the way that the Pus and Mucus Society defines health. Within the context of Pus and Mucus Society, health is defined by those who can eat the worst and live the longest. And that's a pathetic definition. That's a pathetic way to look at health. What's that guy's name? I'm not gonna remember his name, but the guy that was they talk about this guy the guy that the swimmer, the white dude that's
Michael Phelps.
Yeah, like they talk about him because he eats some ungodly amount of calories or something, where he has 50,000 calories a day. I don't know what it is. I have no clue. I don't even know. It's not that. I just made up a number, but it's supposed to be some crazy amount, but it's just a bunch of pus and mucus that he's eating, and he's supposed to have he's got this fast metabolism, all that kind of stuff. It's like, nah, he's a uric acid type, and he eats a lot of pus and mucus. So, and he's the picture of that's what people aspire to. People don't want to be healthy. It's almost like health has conditions in people's head, because people don't want to be healthy if it means eating like we eat. People only want health if they define health by who can eat the worst. That person won the lottery to them. That person can eat so bad, yet they never gain any weight, and they seem to look good. They seem to look healthy, and they have a zest for life, and all that kind of stuff. And there's a percentage of those people that that's the model for the pus and mucus community. They're looking at that like, okay, well, these guys that's what I want. But most people don't. Their physiologies won't let them do that. You're not going to be able to eat like that person. I don't care if you try to work out like that person. You can't eat like that person and expect not to get the illnesses that person will ultimately get. And again, those stories don't always end well, depending on their constitution and depending on the way that the elimination goes. Sometimes those things can have a pretty tragic, kind of end game. And I think, Brother Air used to bring up, and I'm not sure what the official thing, but was, but Brother Air will bring up the example of Bruce Lee. It's like, well, here's a dude that's supposed to be the picture of health, and like I said, I'd have to go on Wikipedia and look up. I forget. It's one of those things where several of these guys, they have these dicey, ends where it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, this guy was supposed to be the guy. If anybody is healthy, Bruce Lee was supposed to be, but something went down, and they'll say, well, it was a rare degenerative disease. No, it's just the way his physiology worked. You can't eat in a way that's diametrically opposed to nature and be scot-free. It doesn't work like that. Everything is paid for, and the question is, how are we going to pay for it? That's where we have a little bit of control. That's where we have a little bit of free will, where we can decide to take on some of these eliminations and some of these things sooner than later. And it makes sense to do it sooner than later so that it doesn't become chronic, so that it doesn't become fatal. Where there's no warning sign. There's no nothing. It's just, that's it. And then those of us that get strong with awareness and understanding to not be fooled by people telling us that we have something, trying to pin some badge, scarlet letter on us saying you have this and it is incurable. We need to deal with that and just get right on by that. If anything, go on. Go look at some Robert Morris testimonials or something, if you want to if you want to start working on that thing of like, well, because that's irrational. We don't need that that whole like you are stricken with this. This is a rare degenerative genetic thing that you are afflicted with, and you must obey. If you want to live for another month or two, you must obey, and you must poison yourself with poisons and pay for them, and they will be $200,000. Yet you still only will live for 2 months.
Mm, right, right.
It's craziness out here. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's
man, and we don't even know like what it means to be human anymore. Is it are we supposed to be like swimming across like the English Channel pulling a huge boat like maybe Jack LaLanne style? Like we just don't really understand what it means and like why we're here. And that's for me, like not to get too far into that, but for me the mucusless diet is like really an awakening process that goes so far beyond like those types of paradigms. Like I don't just want to have like physical prowess or whatever and all this stuff. I'm strong and I'm fit, but I really aspire to like a higher type of humanity, and so all that stuff, like that stuff's just not impressive to me. You know what I mean? I'm just not interested in that type of thing. There's so much more to be gained just the raising of that vitality. Arnold Ehret talks about the mucusless diet will raise your vitality, and some people think about that in terms of like, oh, my vitality will increase and I'll have all this strength to like run the farthest and all this stuff. And for me, that vitality really becomes like a really a kind of spiritual, mental, and physical vitality, but it's just not, it's different, man. So I can't define it. All I know is that's not the humanity that I aspire to. I see something a lot more profound and great.
yeah, man. Yeah, that's real. That's real talk there. And so yeah. Let's see if there's any other questions that popped up or any other issues. Now you had an Earth Day yesterday,
Mm,
so why
yeah,
don't you
man.
tell us a little bit about just your whole process, if you kind of go through like a process of reflection, or
Mm.
if you have anything that you do special on that day.
Oh, man, I don't, man. I was fasting, so I was fasting and I spent some time with family, so that was cool. Had some orange juice. That was kind of like my birthday present type deal. It was like got some fresh orange juice. Um, but really, man, it was just I was realizing some things that might be might be above the conversation, but what I was really realizing in this fast, the short little fast, was the body, like fasting is really how I'm supposed to be. Like when I fast and this waste starts moving through my system, all that waste is the problem. The fast itself is actually normal, the waste is abnormal. It's kind of like we fast despite the waste. Um, it's really interesting. And so that was profound for me. I was realizing just how fasting is really like my normal state, and the food is really just the obstruction. Um, and there wasn't too much, man. It was spiritual. It was an awakening experience. Just having my birthday and thinking about life, but this cycle, this Earth Day was it felt almost like transcendental, man. It was like numbers don't mean nothing. You know, it's like I felt like I'm and feeling good still, you know. It's just it was deep, man.
Yeah, yeah,
There was a lot
yeah.
of profound insights. I've actually been really heavy into the Sedona method, which is something we've talked about before. Um, I've been going through an audiobook course of that and spending a lot of time listening to that audio recording and releasing a lot of emotional and mental stuff. And one thing I realized yesterday is like a lot of times I actually motivate myself by my emotions. Like if somebody does something that I think is neglectful, like there was a situation yesterday where I felt like somebody was being a little bit neglectful of a child, and um, it was kind of like I had anger about it. And because I was heavy into the Sedona method at the time, like I decided to release on the anger. And when I released the anger, the the understanding or even the interest in what had happened kind of left me for a minute. It was kind of like I didn't even care anymore. And then it was just interesting because then I started to kind of understand like what happened that was neglectful of this child, and but the anger was gone. And so I got into the etymology dictionary, and I started looking at ways to kind of frame what I was understanding. And it's pretty much like like when you have thought that is free from agitation, you have the ability to create like sound logic. You know, I'm kind of imagining like a Malcolm X type person, you know, from my paradigm, and like somebody who has this sound logic, and it's not based on emotional fluctuations. It's really based on like this happened, I disagree with it for these reasons, and that's it. Instead of like getting revved up and needing like this emotional stimulation to really get yourself to care about things in the world, like and you know, actually I can tie that into the mucusless diet because it was really hard for me to start getting away from stimulation, um, primarily because when you remove stimulation, like a lot of the stuff that impels you to live in this world or to take care of business or to do things, a lot of that is based on stimulation. So when you start removing stimulation, you actually have a chance to act out of true reasoning and like true vitality, true virtue. Um, and so there was like it was a strengthening process of that whole maturing. That's what was really going on, was a maturing process. Um, you know, so that was just really profound. The idea of like being stimulant free is something that I've really reflected on a lot. And um, yeah, basically it's for me it's just a chance to really live a life based on some kind of like empirical knowledge, like you said, empirical science, like really living your life in a way that is can go along with logic instead of um, like a characteristic of our addictive experiences is like addiction almost always overrides logic. And I was having a discussion recently with somebody about the unconscious, and you know, some people call it like the shadow, like shadow aspects of our personality, which is like the unconscious programming that we have. And um, this person was saying like, well, what would you say if somebody said that the unconscious programming is our greatest strength? And I said that my take on that is that it's strong because it almost always overrides our conscious logic. So it's like our conscious logic is in most cases the weak spot of our personality, and this unconscious programming is actually what really impels us to do everything. And uh, when we practice the mucusless diet, that's almost like the part that we get to, that's like the true battle of the self is, you know, you have these addictive tendencies and habits and stimulations um, that really override everything. And as you start cleaning yourself up, um, it's like my take on that was the unconscious programming is not actually the problem. The problem is what we are programmed for. Like at the unconscious level, the programming could say, you know, go towards pleasure, go away from pain. Like that could be a basic unconscious programming. But if pleasure for us is like eating pus and, you know, just not taking care of ourselves, and pain is actually fasting, pain is actually like not being stimulated, um, then our unconscious programming is always taking us towards unhealthiness. But as we clean ourselves through the mucusless diet, it's like pleasure actually becomes fruit dieting, and unpleasure or pain becomes eating mucus or eating pus or whatever we're trying to get off of. And so the unconscious programming is not really the issue. The issue is the whole paradigm of our life, you know. And as we clean ourselves up, everything can just impel us forward on this trajectory towards becoming cleaner. You know, every time I have an experience of like releasing an emotional obstruction, um, it teaches me something. And um, so, man, yeah, I've just been in this phase, man, where I'm getting into some fasts, and like I feel like my head is a lot cleaner. Like I'm getting cleaner mentally, and I'm able to start fasting with really like with the principles and like looking over the rational fasting text. And um, in the past it was kind of like jumping in a fast, jumping out of fast, and you know it's still kind of like that, but I'm getting to this place where I'm much more refined, I'm much more rational. And so it's been a growing process, man. And I guess that's what the Earth Day represents, man, is like a cycle. And um, so that's kind of all over the map, you know. But that's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
where I've been at, man. Is this growing process, man, just becoming a lot more mature and uh, refined.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, man. You know, and that's a thing that the what you're talking about there is like the reflection. And I think that's
Hmm.
an important aspect of this thing that probably needs to be talked about more. And because such a personal thing, but
Right.
you need to know that it's there and it's something that's important to do, is
Yeah.
to reflect on where you came from physiologically, kind of look at what you're doing, kind of, and and then have some kind of vision and goal for the future. And you can do all of that and still be in the now, as people want to, as the
Hmm.
popular concept these days, catchphrase of the day is that
The catchphrase to make money, you mean?
yeah, I
Sell a
mean,
book
it's
on that.
right, where that's because people have been wearing, yeah, they've been wearing that one out. They're I think they're ready for something new, for a newer newer concept, but just that. And most people, and it's because that's almost my experience with that had been like, that's not really something that you can even like consciously. just like, you're consciously like, okay, like right now I'm gonna be in the now right now, like, I mean, there's techniques and there's stuff that you can get into, and that's what all the people talk about, but that's not even what I'm talking about. Because me, there's nothing wrong with, see, we have intellect for a reason, and I like having this conversation, and I still don't know if people understand it or get it, because I never really get a lot of feedback on this particular discussion, but we have to find a way to balance out our intuition with our intellect. We have both of them for a reason. And in an optimal situation, I think that intuition would run the show, because we are intuition. We do know, we intuitively know what we need to do and should know what we need to do and how to do it and all that kind of stuff. But because we have gotten so far away from nature, so divorced from nature and who we are and what we're supposed to be doing, that we had to kind of develop an intellect for survival purposes. The intellect came, it was like, okay, well, like, if it's hard, it's like, as we got more degenerate, we started trying to figure out ways to do things that used to be easier for us to do, where things that we wouldn't even have to do. So it'd be like, okay, well, now let me start making tools. Let me find something to dig. Before you were just a human in nature living. You didn't need to dig anything. You picked your fruit off the tree, and you lived, and maybe you made a little shelter for yourself somewhere, or maybe not. It just, there's a different level of existence. But now you're like, okay, I want shelter. Okay, let me just develop some tools. And so now there's tools, and it's okay, well, and then tools are that's the fundamental technology. After you create a shovel, now you're looking at what else can we make? Then you move into like, well, I can't make it from A to B as easy as I used to be able to. So let's create a wheel. Let's create. So technology, from the perspective of like our philosophical perspective, is not based on human achievement and evolution, but de-evolution, degeneration. The more technological the society is, the sicker they are, because necessity is the mother of invention, and you don't have people inventing all of these things, a remote control bed. What kind of healthy society is going to create a remote control bed? Where you're like,
that's funny.
That doesn't even make any sense. What kind of real, there's groups of folks in Africa, they talk about that walk with big loads of stuff for 30, 40, 50 miles a day, and that's just normal. It's not like that's not driving, that's walking. So there's a physiology that's on the other side of the mountain that we haven't even gotten the chance to get anywhere near yet.
Right.
And it's gonna be a minute, before
it's gonna take some time.
Before we get back to that level. But so back to the original discussion, intellect, intellect versus and the intuition. And there's a lot of people that think that they should be able to be intuitive, but their senses aren't that keen because of what we've done. Sometimes we have to look in the mirror and be like, we've messed up. And so I don't crave what I'm supposed to crave. I don't feel what I'm supposed to feel. My senses are glued up and messed up, and it's not good enough to just be conscious of it. You got to change your physiology. And that frustrates people that wish that they could just read a book of philosophy or just be in the now, and magically everything is okay. And it's not where it's at, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of like if you want to think through that lens, you have to then be open to the idea of when of moving on what you're supposed to move on, or doing what you're supposed to do when you're presented with a particular opportunity. And that goes back to that classic story of the flood, and somebody's on top of on their roof, and then a helicopter comes, and the guy's like, hey, jump on, and the guy's like, nope, my God will save me. And they're like, well, fine. They go to save somebody else. And then a boat comes along and said, hey, man, jump on the boat. The water's rising. You're going to die. They're like, nope, my God's going to save me. Go help somebody else. And so the guy on the boat goes, Then some motorboat comes up and's like, hey, man, your feet are almost in the water. Why don't you come and jump on this motorboat? Nope, God is going to save me. And then what happens to the guy? The guy drowns to death. And then, as the story goes, in heaven, the guy goes and says, "Hey, God, why didn't you just save me? I had faith in you. Why didn't you save me?" And it was like I sent a helicopter, a boat, and a motorboat to help you, and you refuse to help. And that's
really profound, man, because that's kind of how people approach the diet, in the sense of like, people who want to make it all spiritual and not physical, and that's kind of a hard thing to really understand anyways, because it's like, what is spirituality in the terms of what you're talking about? Because the way that person's often making it sound is like some kind of I don't know if that'd be called philosophy, but it's like, okay, you believe in something.
Theology.
Yeah, because it's like you believe in something, but you're not really saying, like, I don't have no issue with somebody believing in something, but it's like, what is the spiritual world, the spiritual stuff that you're talking about, if it is not connected to the physical? Like, if life is all the vibrations from the highest frequency to the lowest frequency, if that's life, then spirit has to be involved in all of those, so you can't reject one, so it's interesting, man. And another thing, I was actually thinking about this yesterday, that people who talk about, like, not people who talk about, but when we talk about mindfulness or being in the greatest way to do that is to fast. Like, fasting is like the definition of being mindful and being in the now. It's when we're taking something that we start losing ourselves in the experience and whatnot. And that's actually what gets a lot of, I'm not out of this situation myself. Like, that's what gets a lot of us to actually break a fast, is like, I can't take this mindfulness anymore. I can't take this, like, I'm in the present too much right now. Like, let me lose myself in something for a little bit. So I would say fasting is really like the definition of being in the now. And when I envision like serious fasting, or as I experience getting cleaner, that is the definition of all those spiritual concepts. It's getting so profound, man, where it's just, there's no way to talk about this kind of stuff, Fasting is a whole world of experiences on the level of mind and spirit, man, that are just, it's really exciting. It's actually something that impels me to keep practicing the mucusless diet for, like, in a serious way, because it's opens like doors, man.
It's like the experience is so profound, you diminish it to even try and talk about it.
True.
And that's the thing, because not on a daily basis, but often I hear people say, well, do a, Professor Spira, do a spiritual video. you know,
Mm.
do a spiritual video. We want, you know, to what do you think about, you know, spiritual concepts and stuff. And the way I feel about that is for me to even start really talking about some of those experiences that I've had that I know I can't articulate well, uh, to attempt to do that when that message might not be necessary or helpful for other people is to diminish the
Mm.
experience, to diminish that which I have gleaned and understood in these spaces, you know, and of revelation. And so, and
Yeah,
and
it's
at the
very
same
true.
time, I'm very much a type of person that, like, I don't need anybody else's validation. You know, I'm not
Mm.
looking for support like that, where somebody, you know, like where like some community has to agree with with me and my experiences. And, you know, that community
Right,
hasn't
right.
experienced what I've experienced and studied what I've studied, and I have no interest in trying to, because I could sit up here. I mean, you know, I know Tony has, and I have too. I mean, we've read hundreds of books on these
Hmm.
spiritual subjects and watched thousands of lectures and studied these things. And so, I mean, we could sit on here and talk all of that, like all that stuff you've ever heard about. We can talk all that, but
Yeah.
for me, that totally diminishes what I've experienced and what I've seen on this path.
Yeah. Yeah, man, and that's so profound because like on the level of personal experience, man, it's like it's just one of those things that I don't even want to impose concepts on somebody else on a spiritual level, you know, because like my whole thing is like get this information fast and share with us what's coming through you. Because each
Right.
person has a whole different dimension, a whole different karmic experience. And maybe, I mean, like we are so confined, like we're so constructed in this like view that spirituality is like this singular experience, but you know, it's as varied as humans are, you know, and you brought up a concept that made me realize something that I had thought about yesterday, because I was fasting and I was having all these realizations, and I'm getting to the point now where I actually am letting go of realizations, like when they come and they're impelling me to,
Mm.
uh, you know, they might inspire me or they might. The best way to describe it, man, is like some of the realizations are like it's almost like stuff that I'm trying to chase after, like thoughts that I'm trying to really consolidate and solidify, and so I can remember. You know, it's that kind of vibe where it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2 a.m. realizations, then you go to sleep. When you wake up, they're all gone. Like, and so, but what I've realized last night, um, and I've been realizing for a while now, is the true realizations are not the ones that you can forget. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you really realize something, it's going to be simple logic, like the same thing Eric talks about. It's going to be as plain as day as like if you hit your hand with a hammer, it's going to hurt. Uh, the stuff that you are like chasing after and you can't really understand and trying to figure out, those are not the realizations that are the real profound ones. You know, the really
Right.
profound ones become so clear to you that they just become a part of your everyday wisdom, and that's when you can really say something where it's like you can say it to a child or say it to an 80-year-old and it's the exact same and they both understand it, you know. And
That's
so
it. Yeah. You know, yeah.
I'm at
You
I don't chase realizations. I just let them go, and I know that as I grow, my reasoning is just going to become clearer and clearer, you know. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about with
mm,
that. Where,
yeah,
because in the beginning, it's like it's overwhelming because it's like
yeah,
it's literally like opening up another sense. Like we got the five senses, and then some people say a sixth sense. Well, if there is a sixth sense, it's like making that sixth sense clear.
Mm.
Totally opening up that sense to where that type of information is always coming in. And when that first happens, and you're not used to that, all of that frequency coming in, you're like, just you don't know what to do. You go crazy. You start flipping out, and just it can be overwhelming for people, and that's why we say sometimes you got to eat something to just settle you down. Just like, all right, settle
Mm.
down. You really eat a bunch of, eat some stuff, and just like, okay, all right, because you'll be flipping out because you're not, you have to get your body and your mind reoriented to even be able to deal with that kind of that kind of energy, like coursing
Right,
through
right.
you, in your
Yeah,
brain,
yeah.
and just those frequencies, and if you don't prepare yourself properly, you can definitely burn yourself out. That's why, again, I come back
Mm.
to transition, because I've seen that. Dr. Morris talks about that. Other people have talked about that have either experienced it or seen other people do it, where you can, if you don't create a foundation that's strong enough physiologically, and mentally, then you can burn yourself right on out, because
Yeah.
you didn't go through enough process and really establish that foundation. That's what happens to these people that try to do like nothing but fruit for,
Mm.
and it's for long periods of time without really transitioning for long enough. And what happens is they it's counterintuitive, because you can go for a certain period of time and feel great, feel on top of the world, feel better than you ever felt before on those higher levels, the nothing but fruits, or the, totally mucusless, or the fruit juice fasting, or whatever. You can do that, but if you haven't transitioned long enough or properly, or got yourself mentally ready for the energy that is going to be coming your way,
Yeah, yeah.
you know
Definitely, man, because it's like, and when I think about my transition, man, it's really, for me, it's really like a transition to fix my mind around the like, just orientate my mind so that I can be mucusless, so I can fast and stuff like that. Like, that's where I really think about it in those terms, because when you talk to somebody who like did like a year on fruit but they weren't ready, or whatever, 6 months or whatever, um, a lot of times they'll say like it was just too much for me, like it was and when you dig into it, it's kind of like, well, that is such a high level. um, you do have to like orientate yourself to it, and so that it's almost a karmic thing. Like, if you try to jump ahead into a world that you don't belong in, um, then you'll just get beat back. You have to actually, like, as an example, like, let's say, for example, there's like this invisible world of these like high spiritual beings, and when you fast, let's say you kind of join their ranks, like you see their realm, and but you come in there with your old mentality, your old mental constructs. And they're like, who is this fool who just like entered the gate? You know what I mean? who
right.
who just came amongst us and is acting foolish. Like, nah, let's banish him. And so you have to orient yourself, you have to prove yourself, you have to humble yourself, and you have to get some wisdom. Um, And so, in a sense, like, that's what I'm doing, is I'm just trying to make myself clean enough so I can be at the mucusless levels, at the fruit levels, in a real way, and not just carry old pus paradigm, pus mentalities into it. And another thing that's been really important for me is in the past I did always use like food to come back down. And what I'm doing nowadays is I'm really trying to push like the releasing. Like, when when I feel chaotic or just this kind of sporadic inspiration that's just too much, I try to just actually release it and let go of it. And that's been the piece that's allowed me to kind of move a little bit farther in my practice. Is just that allowing myself to release instead of needing to escape it through eating and whatnot, just allowing it to release, man. So yeah.
Yeah, that's that wisdom. That's the wisdom. It's just, yeah, it's like you said, you come up with those pieces that are universal. It's like universal wisdom that you could tell a child, an elder.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Like it's what's truth is truth, and what's rational is rational, and it's gonna be applicable all over. And that was
Exactly.
a big part of my path, because I embraced from fairly young age, once I started really studying sort of ideas and things, and really was interested in trying to understand things on a deeper level. I embraced the idea of a lover of wisdom, which is the definition of a philosopher. A philosopher is a lover of wisdom. A scientist is a lover of knowledge. And so I identified more with, the lover of wisdom, which to me wisdom was a little bit, was on a more elevated plane than just knowledge, because anybody can kind of be knowledgeable or have a certain kind of knowledge, but can you transform that knowledge into wisdom? Can that knowledge be at the service of wisdom? Not with knowledge, you can with science and knowledge, you can build an atom bomb.
Exactly.
Wisdom is going to be the thing that tells you destroy that.
Right.
Destroy that, dismantle the institution and the infrastructure that enabled humans to create that, and move on. That's wisdom. So I'm not all that impressed with the knowledge part of things. It's important, and knowledge of self, knowing oneself is important. But the extent to which we have to know every little in and out of chemical reaction and all that kind of stuff, it can have its place, and it can be a bit be sort of like an amusement park for a period of time. But for me, the overriding most important aspect is going to be moving into a space of wisdom, and that is just, and that's just
that's
my
real,
personal.
man.
That's just my personal thing, guys. I ain't even telling, like, the wisdom I would impart to you is to also be interested in wisdom, but I don't. I ain't forcing that on you. That's a path that I chose from a fairly young age. Was I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to, when I turned on the TV and I saw people getting shot and murdered and their heads cut off, I wasn't gonna turn the other cheek and ignore it and say, just pretty flowers, good vibrations. I'm gonna ignore that. I can't handle that. Like, I did the opposite. I was like, I want to engage in that and work through it so that I can transcend it in terms of where these things, no matter what I do, these things are part of the reality that we have found ourselves in, eaten ourselves down into, and we're here. So the person that's on a little higher plane of consciousness is going to be the one that can acknowledge that such and such is bad, that such and such is the result of a society drenched in pus and mucus eating. So, but at the same time, not get sucked into the drama, not get sucked into and feel responsible for and guilty for these atrocities that happen on a daily basis around the world. You know, child sex slavery is huge right now in the world,
Yeah,
and you know,
yeah.
children. Uh, you know, and with a lot of people like, well, what can I do about it? You know, for me, I practice a mucusless diet and I fast, and that in itself, because if you say be the change in the world that you want to see, you know, we're talking right
Right,
now
right,
so that we
right,
can
right.
express some ideas to you, but I guarantee that everything we're talking about, we're doing. Like, we're not just like sitting and, so some people say
Right.
that like, oh, you guys just talk. Like, you don't know what we're doing. When the camera goes
No.
off and when we like, you don't know how hard we're working and what we're doing, because it's not always necessary to put up some banner like, this is what we do, this is the hard work we do behind the scenes, you know, love
Yeah,
us.
right.
Like, that ain't even our vibe. So when people have that kind of attitude, I just have to, you know, I just have to have compassion for them, because they know not what they're talking about. But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of really, you know, of really taking things somewhere. That's what I can contribute to world peace. What I'm doing, this, I'm practicing the Mucusless diet, and I'm each one teach one. You know, I'm sharing this
Yeah.
information with some other people. I hope that you share it with other people, and they share it with other people, because I know that on this lifestyle, that this is the peaceful lifestyle. Like, this path and in this direction, you get yourself clean enough,
Very
you
true, man.
get
Right.
to a space of peacefulness. And that doesn't mean that along the path, you know, we wasn't that long ago, we were pus eaters. So there's going to be some eliminations. I'm not, you know, you're not a saint overnight. That's unrealistic. And the people that try to sort of put themselves in that kind of sphere without really
Right,
having done
right.
the work, you know, because that gets to me sometimes, because I see some of those people, they're all
Yeah,
trying
man.
to trying to be all saintly. I'm like, man, yeah, oh, nah, I ain't buying that. That's a little act you got going on there, because then
Yeah, a
you
lot
know,
of that.
then
Yeah.
those are the same people that try to rationalize, you know, how spiritual meat eating is. You know, like, they're like, well, this is the holy hamburger, no cheese, no, don't put cheese on it.
Yep.
And I say a prayer over it, and I bless it, and then it's blessed, and thus I eat
Uh,
and am of the flesh of
you
the
know, I think
swine.
there's a I think there's a popular breatharian who's like that.
Ah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, man. Selling Coca-Cola that's blessed and cheeseburgers, the transitional Whopper, you know, it's like transition to
Yeah.
breatharian in 21 days with cheeseburgers.
21 days with cheeseburgers. You know, yeah, it's like that kind of thing is so
And that's
so silly, man. And when
ugh.
when you get, you know, like Brother Air would say, you know, don't go for the head fake. You know, don't go for the okey doke,
Mm,
because there's
right.
plenty of that out there, man. There's plenty of that will sell you dreams and all that. It's like, you know, our thing is very, like I said, it's simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is
Right.
simple. It's gonna be, and if the simplicity is something that has to kind of be embraced, and to really be understood, because
Yeah, true, true. Very true.
and you know, so I mean, it's
If you complicate this stuff, it's not really as helpful to you as if you simplify it and just accept that this is just a lifestyle. Like, you know, like if you practice meditation or something, it's like 5 minutes in the morning and evening. You know what I mean? Like, do that for 5 years before you try to go on to 20 minutes. Like, that's the meditation system and thought that I come from, and I apply that the same way to the mucusless diet. Is like, this is not an overnight thing. Just do a little bit each day. Try to progress. Like, gradual progressive changes is what it's all about. You know. you never going back, and you really can't push yourself forward. You just got to be where you are and work with it, you know. So it's real, man. And you know, we're unpretentious to a certain degree. We're not up here like peace and love, brothers and sisters. This is Tony Boliby, and I'm sending out to the universe waves of enlightenment. You know, it's like
Right, yeah, you know, and the god and we call upon the goddess energy to, you know, like
you know, all that stuff, man, that happens in the frequency. That happens in the realm of vibration. So just like what you said about the fasting, man,
right.
is
It's like this stuff that
that's
really
the
doesn't need to
cleansing.
be said. You know, it's like there's some stuff just doesn't really even need to be said. You know, it
Right,
because
right.
it is part of the life. You know, it is part of the liberty, as they say,
Yeah.
and you don't have to. It's like doing what you're supposed to be doing because you're supposed to be doing it. Not looking for a pat on the back, not looking for acceptance from
Right.
others, but doing what you're supposed to do because it's what you're supposed to do. And
Yeah, very true, man. And the cleaner I get, the more I aspire to just sharing the information, like straight out the book almost, just sharing the step by step, you know, because I know that's what everybody really benefits from, and that's what I've benefited from is this is how you do a fast, this is how you do the transition diet. Like that is the doorway to all the other stuff, you know.
yeah, 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 most definitely. And so yeah, so we'll probably we'll bring it to a close. I
Mm,
thought about maybe calling Brother Eric, seeing I don't know if the
mm.
if the work, like he wouldn't be able to hear you, but I might be able to put him on speakerphone and have him do a shout out into the microphone. And so maybe you should I call him? You want to try that?
Yeah,
And
man. Yeah.
let's see how the quality. I have no clue how this is gonna work.
Yeah, man. Brother
So
Air,
you
man, he's like the inspiration to this thing, man.
so tell me if you can hear hear the
I
ringing
can
and
hear
stuff.
it clear, the ringing.
What's up?
Hey, what's up, man? Hey, Brother Air, you are on live on YouTube right now talking.
Oh wow, man.
Yeah, I'm on here with Tony now. Unfortunately, the way I don't got it set up where you can hear Tony talk, he's in my headphones, but I think everybody can hear you. Tony, how's it sound when he's talking?
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds
Yeah,
good.
he says it sounds good. So yeah, man. So what's been going
Tell,
on?
tell, tell Tony happy Earth Day, and if you got my message and everything, so you know, yeah, getting
Hey, man,
old,
tell
man.
him tell him thanks a lot, man. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. He said thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what's happening? I'm actually over here at the levee, man, dropping Hanif off, and I actually got the computer on right now.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Well, and you could probably. I don't know if the speed would be fast enough for you to see it. We're gonna be. We've actually been at it for a couple hours now, so we might be cutting off here
Oh, okay.
shortly. But yeah, man, we just rapping, covering some questions. Had a few questions come in, and and for those of you, most of you out there that's watching this have probably know Brother Air, read about him, or seen some of the videos of him here on this channel. And he's practicing the Mucusless diet over 35 years, and is at it. You said you've been fasting for 3 months now.
Actually, on your birthday, I started the fast.
Okay, December 15th. So
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Okay.
nice.
So that's
Yeah, I
yeah.
was inspired by you by your birthday, you know, or your Earth Day. I was inspired, so I stopped eating. So yeah, man, it's been good, man. I was really thinking about trying to do a season, you know, like from winter to spring, and we got a few more days to the beginning of spring, I guess. But it looks like it's going good. Now, I've been doing a lot of dry fasting too, man. You know, weeks, you know, at that. And I think I was telling you and Tobin the other day that I was really going through it. The days that I would feel like I needed to come off of the dry fast, which was very unusual, was that I was really going, for better word, I was like, it was almost like I was like going out my mind, man. I was losing it, you know? And that had never happened as far as, because I mean, I had done longer days drive before than that, but I don't know if it was just, I was in the midst of putting that memorial together for my wife, you know, and I don't know if a lot of that kind of mental stuff was going on, and man, I was losing it, man. So
Yeah.
you know, but a little pineapple juice, and I was back.
Yeah. And that's
Stimulant. I needed a little stimulant, so it was, you know, the pineapple juice, and I was all right. So yeah, man, it's been this is the fast for me, I think, because this is where I really take it to the you know, the mucusless diet. This is it. You know, this is, you know, the mucuslessness now, you know, and fruitarianness, and that you know, that is going to be, you know, the order of the day in terms of what my physiology can handle very comfortably. So it takes a while, man, to transition. I guess some, you know, shorter than others, some longer than others. For me, you know, it's been 30 years, man, you know, of transition and really feeling like mucuslessness is natural now. You know, there's no craving for toast, or there's no craving for that kind of thing. You know? So that's where I'm, you know, in my head, man. It's like it's prepared. You know, it's prepared to do some real fantastic physiological things, you know. And so I'm stepping it up, man, because a lot has to do with just the mucusless diet, the interest of the mucusless diet all over the world now. Like, that motivates me, man, because a lot of people, I guess, are counting on me, you, and Tony, you know, to really create some kind of leadership, you know, in terms of physiology, you know. So that motivates you, man, when other people are looking at you and kind of taking your lead and want to know what you're going through, trying to become mucusless. It's a level of motivation there, man, that I've plugged into, and you know, with the group and everything, and just like I say, the interest. I mean, you know, when I started, man, it wasn't that kind of interest, and now, due to you, Professor, you know, just everything you do on the computer and all of the, you know, the whole Mucus-free life. .com type of stuff and all that stuff, and man, it's motivating, man. It's elevating, you know. It's about, you know, elevating, man. So I feel elevated because I operate from the notion that I come from bacon, eggs, and that whole soul food thing. And if I could do this thing, man, I think my physiology is nothing special, and I just think that all of us, because I get that a lot when people say, well, if it works for you, well, I think it can work for everybody, man. I think it can work for everybody because the principles are, we are air gas engines, and there might be, a little different to our physiology, a little different, that a little different. But when I say a little different, I'm talking about like percentages, just a few percentage difference. It's not a lot, but I'm saying overall we can do this. Everybody can do this. Everybody posed to do this because this is who they are. They're earthlings and they are air gas engines, and that they food is not supposed to be the center of their life or the attention that they give it. So this is for everybody, and so I'm not looking at all these other sites that these health gurus or whatever they call themselves. It's always a diet involved. The transition. We talk about the transition. Now I hear people talking about transition in these other diets. They didn't never use those words. They didn't never use those terms. So I know they're listening and they're checking this out. They're checking the Mucusless Diet out. Now they're not saying that they're practicing the Mucusless Diet, but they're taking a lot from a lot of the our dialogue. And see, and that's the dangerous thing. Is like you take all this stuff out of context and you use these words, but you can't really match them up with a system.
Right.
And so people get into trouble because they start thinking that they're fruitarians or they're raw foodists, but they have all these little catchphrases that we use. We was talking about mucus. They even use mucus now on national ads, just talking about their little cold remedies and stuff. So we were talking about this stuff in the 70s and 80s, man, very clear. And so people listen, man, and they take these words and use them as a marketing tool. We never use anything as a marketing tool. When we use these words, we use them to describe what we're going through. Transition, mucus, and pus. Just the best way to describe, good for nothing. That's what it represents, good for nothing. That was Vic Butcher. He used to say that. It's good for nothing, So, yeah, man. It's been fast, man. I've been really digging some of the days, man. Most of the days, I've been really elevating, man, and feeling real good about myself, and the law of attraction, in terms of, but I'm not talking about attracting like people of the opposite sex. I'm talking about just things happen. Things have been happening, and it's like, wow, here it comes, and here it goes out, and here it comes back, and here it goes out. It's just like, wow, this is heavy. So, a little bit of that magic, starting to appear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what kind of questions are y'all dealing with? Yes, of course.
I mean, the day was a light day, you know, because I just kind of get questions from different conversations I either had or things that people send me messages or emails, or there might be a hot topic of the time. And the one thing I did announce that I was gonna announce again is I told you about the making the annotated Mucusless Diet into an audiobook, and
Right.
I created our first ever attempt at crowdfunding, and
Oh, wow.
so
That's
I got
awesome.
I got the thing set up, and so I'll show the folks that are watching here. I'll put it back on, and you can find the link to it if you're on.
Hey, Spira, you still there?
Where you are. And that kind of stuff on my mind. Really, to
Uh,
All right. Brothers and sisters, I'm not sure if you're still there. There's still a few viewers there. I'm not sure how this will roll, but it says we're still live. Looks like the audio is being, the feed is a bit funny. But yeah, basically what happened was my everything everything kind of shut down. So apologize for that. Definitely for those of you that were watching this. Hopefully with the replay video, it just sort of splices it together and hooks it all up. So what we were saying, go to the fun. Oh, here we go. Tony's back in business. You hear me?
Hey, man, I hear you now.
Okay, yeah. We everything fell apart there for a second.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I was trying to share the screen to share the GoFundMe site one more time, and then Brother Air was talking, and then all of a sudden everything on my computer froze, and so I don't know what happened once it froze. I don't know when you stopped being able to hear and see, but I know you already can't see, but so yeah, so I apologize for those. We still got a couple viewers hanging in there. And so appreciate you guys.
Is it part of the same video stream, or?
Yeah, this
Okay.
as far as I know, this will end up as part of, because it was never closed out. So when something like this happens and it starts broadcasting again, then I think there's maybe a message that says there's technical difficulties and we'll be back in a moment. And then once it starts over again, then it just comes back in. So we're actually we're broadcasting back on the same tip, but yeah, we'll go ahead and probably close it out here. I just wanted to give one more. I want to thank Brother Air for being on here for a minute and kind of sharing some serious wisdom and knowledge, and that's and that's the kind of stuff that it's like, to me, those are the serious conversations. When we start to really get into what does this thing really look like? What's the realistic expectation in terms of a rational long-term transition? And because when people start talking about, well, I'm gonna be totally off of cooked foods in such and such years, and I'm gonna be totally mucus-free in such and such years, I just kind of look at them like, all right, well, good luck, because I don't like to hold anybody back from some aspiration or some vision they have. I'm not that type of person, but at the same time, I also have a little bit of experience and wisdom in this area, and I know that the majority of what people think that they will be able to do right at the beginning is not possible, or at least it hasn't been possible yet. And I've yet to really see like what I would consider to be, a physiological genius that can just walk in and be like, ha, and just take this thing and just be insane with it. I mean, those kind of folk, the people that are that healthy, they have that strong of a physiological constitution, aren't even interested in the diet yet, mostly, in terms of this, because it's it tends to be people that are either going through something that, some kind of tragedy or something health-wise, and that sort of gets them to the level where they are open to follow, to kind of find this kind of information, where they're even searching for this, and then you have the kind of people that might have a strong constitution and be relatively healthy within the context of the whole standard system, but they are individuals that are sort of interested in the highest level of humanity, like the highest level that humans can achieve or have to offer. And and after you've gotten your PhDs and you've gotten your peace awards and all that kind of stuff, you have nothing else to do but the mucusless diet. It's the highest level. There's nothing, there's nothing else for you to do except check this out. Once you've achieved everything there is to achieve in the physical realm, you got your Super Bowl rings and your World Series rings, and you got your PhDs, you've been president, or whatever you've done that you think would be the highest level of humanity within the context of the pus and mucus world. You have nothing else left but this level, the mucusless diet level, because this will lead to what a lot of the people that are in various spiritual disciplines in terms of self-realization and that kind of stuff. I mean, this is that. I mean, this goes along with that, or is that, and there's I won't get too deep into that.
Yeah, man, that's well said, man.
Trying to split hairs. Definitely. But so I want to really appreciate everybody that has been tuning in, checking this out. Like I said, check the link below for our if you can spare anything you want to donate, I was much appreciated. $5, $10, whatever. There are those gifts that I talked about earlier. You can see those listed. Like $10. The gift that you will receive is you'll be the first person to have a downloadable copy of the product. So basically you're being a part of trying to get it made, because it's not cheap, and but I wanted to go with a really good voice actor. I didn't want to just get anybody off the street and be like, hey, you read this book, and I wanted them to really be serious, and so that's something that I'm
man. I'm excited to make my donation, man, because I really look forward to getting that audio book, man. It's gonna be on point.
Yeah, most def. So again, as always, it's a pleasure to broadcast out to the world and talk about my favorite subject, and thank Tony Biley for being on here with me. And you got any?
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Any final words to folks out there?
Man, I'm gonna keep practicing, and I hope everybody else on here does as well. And it was really inspiring to get Brother Air on this talk, man, and to hear what he had to say. And yeah, man, it really inspired me. I'm happy to have woken up today to this conversation, man. It was beneficial.
Yeah, man. So all right. Well, that about sums it up. Until next time, peace, love, and breath.